Good morning, everyone. We are going to get started in just a minute or two. We still have folks logging on. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. Thanks so much again for joining us this morning. We still have a bunch of folks logging on. So again, we're going to get started in just a minute. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us this morning. Welcome. My name is Mary Darby, and I'm the External Relations Director with ThinkTennessee. Part of my job is to help ensure our research products are not just informative, but actionable. Data, findings, and recommendations that partners and leaders can put to use. And that action orientation will be our focus today as we discuss our brand new project, the State of Our County's Dashboard. By the end of our discussion today, we hope to empower you to use this tool to further your understanding of the complex needs and opportunities in Tennessee's communities. As we will discuss today, the county dashboard shows that there are immense opportunities for counties to collaborate, whether partnering together to find solutions to shared challenges or learning best practices from counties that have already achieved success. We hope that the county dashboard will facilitate new connections between local leaders and advocates, and we look forward to continuing to support your work. Here is what you can expect during our brief 30 minutes today. First, I'll start with a very broad overview of ThinkTennessee's mission and work for those who are less familiar. Next, we'll walk through the county dashboard. Our goal is to introduce the tool and teach you how to use it. We unfortunately won't have time to get through all 9,500 pieces of data now, but this presentation will introduce you to some of the tips and tricks and show you just how powerful the tool is. Then we will share a summary of our key findings, which are focused on county-level data related to the economy and elections. We will close with Q&A, so please add your questions to the Q&A box as we go through the presentation, and we will address them at the end. A few other housekeeping items. The slide deck will be available on our website and sent to you all following the presentation. I will also note that we are recording this webinar and planning to share on our website as well. So, before we dig into the data, a brief moment to introduce you to ThinkTennessee. ThinkTennessee is a nonpartisan, results-oriented think tank that uses research, engagement, and advocacy to build a state where all Tennesseans are civically engaged and economically secure. Working in partnership with state and local leaders, we drive evidence-based policies that strengthen the voice of voters, better support working families, and move Tennessee forward. When we launched in 2017, we had just one full-time staff person committed to this work. Today, we are in the process of hiring our 10th. This growth has enabled us to expand our issue focus and conduct more research to serve the needs of our community. In addition to our mission to provide actionable data and information, we also work in partnership with other organizations to identify policy priorities for advocacy. These priorities shape our legislative agenda for the year. Now it's my pleasure to introduce you to ThinkTennessee's Policy and Research Director, Amy Gore, who will share additional detail on ThinkTennessee's policy priorities in 2024 and research efforts. Amy.
Great. Thank you so much, Mary. So ThinkTennessee focuses on two program areas. First is strengthening democracy, which includes issues of good governance, voting access, as well as supporting judicial independence and fair redistricting. Second, our Supporting Working Families program focuses on issues related to family income, such as fair labor laws, living wages, workforce development, affordability of basic needs like childcare, housing, transportation, and utilities, as well as debt, particularly debt caused by court fines and fees. As Mary mentioned, each year we work with our partner organizations, our board, and others to develop a list of policy priorities. In 2024, we are focused on improving the voting rights restoration process, eliminating restrictions on absentee ballot application sharing, and supporting voter education. In addition, we are promoting increased access to affordable housing and transit, improving access to good jobs with fair wages and benefits like paid leave. If you haven't had a chance to check out some of our work from this year, we recently released our State of the State Transportation Report, our 2022 Election After Action Report, a policy brief on debt in Tennessee, as well as a policy brief on voting rights restoration. Last Friday, we released our voter education series, and soon we will be releasing our State of Working Tennessee report, as well as our General Session After Action report. All of these reports can be found at thinktennessee.org under research. Today, we are really excited to introduce you to the State of Our County's dashboard. Think Tennessee has been producing the State of Our State dashboard for several years. It shows how Tennessee overall is performing compared to other states on a wide range of topics like education, transportation, and civic engagement. This year, for the first time, Think Tennessee is releasing a new county level dashboard, which includes over 100 indicators for all 95 counties. The goal of the county dashboard is to draw attention to areas where statewide data obscures local needs. Like our statewide data dashboard, it includes data and rankings in health, education, housing, transportation, public safety, economy, voting and civic engagement, and more. We want this to be an easy to use, one-stop source for local data for the general public, community advocates, as well as our elected leaders. We think that providing data at the local level can help bring attention to regional issues as well as shared challenges and opportunities throughout Tennessee. And with that, I will turn it over to Matthew Kinney, who is our policy associate and lead on the development of the dashboard.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Mary. My name is Matthew Kinney, and I'm here to provide a snapshot of our dashboard website. You can see here a picture of the dashboard as you will find it on the website. We want to take a moment to walk through its features with you, explaining its various features and purposes. As a note, rankings are generally standardized such that first always indicates positive performance and 95th always indicates poor performance. Some metrics have excluded rankings altogether because they are not clear indicators of positive or negative performance. On the left side of the screen, as you see here, you'll first select the category and metric to display. The list of metrics available will correspond with their respective categories. With 9 categories from children, health, housing, economy, elections and civic life, education, infrastructure and mobility, and more, there are lots of opportunities to look at. For the sake of this session, we've selected the economy category and the unemployment metric. We've also included an option to attach labels for all 95 counties, which you can enable or disable here. In the top left corner of the map window, you can see the metric title, as well as the definition and source of the metric. When you click on any given county, a pop-up box will appear. In it, you will see the county name, the value for that metric, that county's rank, and the average Tennessee county value. In this instance, you can see that Sevier County has an unemployment rate of 3.2%. In many metrics with percentages, you'll see a number bounded by parentheses that tells you the estimated number of individuals in that population. So Sevier County has an estimated unemployed population of 1,734 people. This puts Sevier County 19th relative to all other counties in Tennessee, which have an average unemployment rate of 3.7%. Meaning that Sevier has an unemployment rate below the average. As a word of advice, be sure to click and select the county you want carefully. If you are zoomed too far out and click too close to the county border, you may select a neighboring county accidentally instead of the one you intended. In the top right portion of the map, you will see a Compare Stats option. By enabling the comparison tool at the top of the window, you can compare metrics across categories through a scatter plot. When you enable this feature and select your comparison metric, both data values will be displayed in a single county's pop-up window on the map window. The comparison metric's definition and source is displayed in the comparison window as well. As a word of caution, while this tool allows you to compare 2 metrics, it in no way guarantees any statistical significance in correlation or causation. If we return back to the left side of the screen, you'll see 3 buttons which all offer alternative ways of reviewing the data. The first button at the top provides a PDF summary of all 95 counties of the metric that you have selected. It is the equivalent of printing all 95 counties' individual pop-up boxes for one metric into a convenient PDF. The All Metrics button on the lower portion of the window will provide information for all 104 metrics for a single county for a single PDF. And then the County Overview option will provide a snapshot of key rankings and indicators from various categories and metrics through the lens of Think Tennessee's policy priorities of strengthening democracy and supporting working families, serving as a useful overall tool to review important issues. Now that we've walked through some of the features of the dashboard, I'd like to quickly go through some key findings for you. Obviously, there are still loads of data and tools for you and your communities to sift through, but these are just some of the quick highlights. The common refrain is that the state of Tennessee's growth is strong, and that is mostly true at the average county level. Between 2021 and 2022, the average county experienced a 1.2% population growth, with Wilson County at 4.3% being the highest and Lake County at negative 1.4% being the lowest. This population growth has typically been higher in Middle Tennessee than in other parts of the state. The average county experienced a 3.6% increase in GDP, with Ray County being the highest at 28% and Lauderdale being the lowest at negative 9.5%. East and Middle Tennessee counties were typically above average, while West Tennessee was below average in GDP growth. The average county experienced a 4% increase in employment between 2021 and 2022. But if we take a moment and look at this longer term analysis, this growth has really not been evenly distributed throughout the state. Between 2010 and 2022, West Tennessee averaged 8.9% employment growth compared with 26.3% in Middle Tennessee and 18% in East Tennessee. In this long-term period, Wilson County experienced the greatest long-term employment growth, an estimated 76.8% increase, followed by Williamson at 75.1% and Moore County at 60.9%. Lake County, however, had the lowest in employment growth in the long term, a negative rate of 12.4%. In spite of this both short-term and long-term growth, the increases in jobs, GDP, and population have unfortunately not been enough to support working families. The median household income for the average county is an estimated $51,734, with Middle Tennessee being above average and East and West Tennessee being slightly below average. When compared with the cost of living, however, in almost all counties, the average wages and salaries and/or median household income is anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 short of the average cost of living, which stands at $69,367. There are lots of different ways to measure cost burden and the gaps in between income and the cost of living. But if we look at the different ways that we have measured that in the dashboard, we can begin to see why the cost of living is so high. And housing, for example, in the average county, 24% of residents spend 30% or more of their income on housing-related expenditures. This is particularly acute in urban counties, which jumps up nearly 7% higher to 31% of residents being cost burdened. 24% of a household's income is needed to afford the cost of childcare for 2 children. This is generally a persistent figure across counties, but can vary drastically depending on which county we're talking about. It can be as low as 12% in Williamson County and 18% in Wilson, or be at or exceeding 30% of a household's income in Lake, Hancock, Clay, and Sullivan counties. The pie wheel on the left shows a breakdown across a variety of expenditures based on data from the Economic Policy Institute. Other considerations that influence the cost of living in many counties include transportation and healthcare. The economic outcomes as a result of this growth and the cost of living and incomes and salaries vary significantly among counties. The poverty rate averaged 16% among all counties, but tended to be 1 to 3 percentage points higher in rural counties. There were 13 counties whose poverty rates exceeded 20% or more than 1 in 5 people. Middle Tennessee typically had lower levels of debt in collections at 31% compared to the overall average county of 34%. This average is also typically lower in urban counties and higher in rural non-metro areas. In the average county, 20.2% of people are likely to have some form of medical debt in collections, 29.3% are likely to have some form of auto debt, and 11.3% are likely to have some form of student debt. 15% of households in the average Tennessee county receive food stamps. If you take a moment and look at the graph to the left, and you can see some poverty rates for selected demographics, child poverty rate is far higher. I'd like to take a moment and explore some of the outcomes for children that we've included in the dashboard. If you look at the map from our dashboard, you can see that Middle Tennessee has generally lower child poverty rates, averaging 19%, compared to East and West Tennessee's average of 24%. Hancock County had the highest child poverty rate at 43.2% and Moore County at 3%. In the average county, more than 1 in 5 children, or 22%, live in households below the poverty line. That is 5% higher than any other demographic. Broadening our analyses, we can see that 25.1% of children live in households headed by a single parent. 43% of youth are considered overweight or obese, and 14% of children live in households that experience an uncertainty of having enough food in the past 12 months because of insufficient money or other resources. In the average county, 23.9% of households with children rely on food stamps, which is the second highest demographic after considering households in poverty. 30% of children in the average county live in households that receive public assistance, and that increases to 37% in rural, non-urban counties. When we look at the older ages of children, high school graduation rates are 87% in the average county, but are far lower for economically disadvantaged students and students with disabilities, averaging 80% and 40% respectively. In the average county, about 26.5% of people have obtained an associate's degree or higher in educational attainment. If we can also take just a moment and turn to our elections and civic life data, we do find some mixed results. Voter registration rates averaged 85% for 2022 and the 2020 elections, but was slightly higher in Middle Tennessee at 88% and lower in West Tennessee at 80%. The turnout numbers, however, vary drastically. We all know that turnout rates are far higher in presidential election years than in midterms, but a turnout gap of roughly 1/3 of voters between 2020 and 2022, as you see here, is quite significant. In 2022, voters were relatively even in terms of how they voted. 54% of voters in the average county voted in person on election day, and this was typically a greater percentage in rural, non-urban counties. 44% of voters chose to cast votes early through the early voting processes, which was much higher in urban counties. If we take another look at a map from the dashboard, we can see that 2022 voter turnout has lots of subtleties in geography, and Hancock had the lowest voter turnout at 29.3%, and Loudoun County had the highest at 48.4%. Montgomery County stands at having the lowest turnout rates among high population counties at 29.8%, with Williamson and Wilson having higher rates of about 44 to 45% each. There are lots of other metrics that we did not discuss in this brief time period, and we hope that you'll take the time to explore the dashboard and better understand some of the key insights for your communities. At this point, I'd like to turn it back over to Mary for our question and answer session. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew, for that great presentation and lots of data-rich information. So at this point, we are inviting all of your questions in the Q&A box, and we've seen a great number already come in. So without much delay, I'll go ahead and ask the first question. Amy, I think this is a good question for you. The question is, how do you choose which metrics to include?
Fantastic. Thank you, Mary. This is a good question. So we include, we started with the metrics that we have been including historically in our state dashboard. Those are areas like Matthew mentioned: economics, transportation, housing, voter turnout. Those are issues that are really close to Think Tennessee's mission, as well as what we have heard from our partner organizations and from folks all throughout the state as being really critical issues for them. And so that was where we started, with trying to find as much good information as we could for those particular metrics. We were also looking for data that was obviously county level, that was recent data, and that was from a quality source, a source that we trusted and felt like other people could trust as well. So that was sort of our filter process for which metrics to include.
Great. Matthew, this next question is for you. What do you mean by the average Tennessee county? Is that the same as the statewide average?
So the statewide average is not the same as the county averages, because we're dealing with different levels of geographic units and different densities of population. So on the statewide average, that is the entire population of Tennessee, regardless of which county they live in or which community they live in. The county average is a geographic comparison that compares all 95 counties, takes all the numbers for a metric for all 95 counties and averages that. And that typically could result in similar, but not always the same, or it could be a drastically different number than the statewide average, because again, we're dealing with populations may live in different areas than the average of all counties. Hopefully that answers your question.
Great. Amy, we had a couple questions come in about inflation. One talking about the cost of living having something to do with high inflation, right? And then thinking about the connection to the poverty rate. Can you speak to that just a little bit?
Absolutely. I think those are two great points. I think it's very clear to anybody who's, buying groceries or paying rent that we're all being impacted quite a bit about from high inflation and from the inflation rate. And certainly we see that borne out in this data in terms of the cost of living increases and other data that points to some of those challenges that we're facing. I do think that with the dashboard, it really is, at least at this point, since it's our first dashboard, sort of a picture in time, a snapshot in time. And so it's difficult using the dashboard data on its own to point to correlation or causation, anything like that. But we are working on some additional research products using this data over the next several months to try and talk in more detail about some of the whys and the connection points between the data. And so I think that looking at inflation rates is a great, the cost of living increases and inflation rates would be a great thing to explore in one of those future products.
Great. Matthew, another question for you. Can you please re-explain the county overview feature as compared to the metric summary and the all metrics?
Once again, sorry, everyone, I just realized I was muted. Sorry for the confusion there. I'll start over. The All County Summary button on the top relates to the metric that you have selected and that is displayed in the map window. So as you can see here, if we're selected unemployment, the button that you select for All County Summary will print out all 95 counties data points in one PDF specific to unemployment. The lower level, the County Summaries, provides two buttons. One of those buttons allows you to select all metrics, which means that if you are interested in Anderson County, you can look at all 104 indicators in one PDF and it displays all the information from that from those pop-up boxes. The county overview is a more kind of a broad level shareable document that kind of looks at it from Think Tennessee's policy priorities of strengthening democracy and supporting working families, and can just kind of be a tool that helps you review some of the key findings or things that were of interest to us as we were looking through this data.
Great. And there you can see the ways to review. Those are what the actual PDFs look like when you download them after clicking the button. All right. I think we have time for a couple more questions. One came in just now. Let's see. You mentioned in the beginning something about Think Tennessee collaborating with counties. What would that involve? Amy, I think that's a great one to hand over to you.
Sure. So I think that we like to collaborate with counties in many different ways. One is by providing data such as the dashboard for counties to use in addition to our research products that are more like reports. So our goal is that through our research and through the dashboards that we are providing high quality, up-to-date information for counties to better understand their local conditions and the policies that might be helpful to addressing maybe some of their challenges or opportunities in their counties. We also work with local governments during legislative session to work on bills together, to advocate together for statewide solutions that will be impactful throughout many local communities throughout the state. And then we also, again, sometimes do short policy briefs that are location specific. So for example, last year we did one for Nashville and one for Memphis. So there's several ways that we like to work with local counties, and we're always interested in trying to better understand what their needs are and how we can be useful, because that is our mission. So thank you for that question.
Okay. I think in our last couple of minutes here, we'll just answer this two last questions. Amy, I think, or Matthew, maybe this is a Matthew question. How frequently will you update the data?
So because we like to know both how our local counties are doing, but also how Tennessee is comparing relative to the other states in the country, we alternate every other year. So this year was our State of Our Counties dashboard. Next year, we intend to update the State of the State dashboard. And our hope is to bring that alongside this product and make it an interactive feature as well, and provide a similar level of resources and interactivity. I will say that our long-term goal is to get to the point where they're self-updating, so that as data sources that we use release new sets of data, the tool will reflect that in a live manner. But as of right now, we're currently doing it on an every other year perspective. Excellent.
Well, thank you again so much for those excellent questions. We really appreciate your time and attention this morning. Before we leave you, we just want to say, we look forward to hearing how you use the dashboard and seeing you use it in action. In the future, you can expect a couple more issue deep dives from us, some regional analyses or issue analyses that we'll likely be tackling in the months to come. In terms of next steps for this presentation, we will be following up with an email that will include the PowerPoint and a link to the recording of this webinar. So you are welcome to refer back to it whenever you please. In the meantime, don't hesitate to reach out with questions, and be sure to follow us on social media and sign up for our newsletters on our website so you can stay abreast of all of our latest research. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We've really appreciated having the opportunity to share the State of Our Counties dashboard. Take care.